Hey, all right. We already had this conversation from Clarion to Millersville.
But seriously though, if y'all have a location in Harrisburg that can seat 50 parents socially distanced with tables and chairs, a minimum of 50, it can be more, but no less than 50 socially distanced with tables and chairs, we could consider Harrisburg. Remember, I went to school, Millersville University up in the building, Millersville University alumni.
I tried to shout out Clarion, but you tried to overtalk me. So you go again.
MU, baby, MU, Marauderville.
Hey, look. Let me. So this one, I don't want to disrespect our living two Americas, but I don't want. Do you have that hard stop at 10?
Nah, we good. We got a few minutes after.
My man, no doubt. So we gonna roll on into living in two Americas. And the first thing I want to touch on, of course, is the January 6th racist riots that took place. Our theme has been living in two Americas. We wanted to talk clearly about what was seen, how it was handled. We don't even need to talk about if it was Black people. We already know that part. Let's talk about why there was no real consequences till this day. While there has not been any real action to ensure that this would never happen again. In fact, things are, in essence, from my perspective, allowed to be perpetuated for another one, should the other side so choose to. Let's talk a bit about living in two Americas, especially
2 points.
All right.
2 points that I would bring up with the Capitol riots. Point number one is white privilege.
Okay.
We saw white privilege on display in a way we haven't seen in quite a long time. We've seen white people scale buildings, beat up police, vandalize offices, and almost nothing was done to them. And then in the aftermath of the Capitol riots, we saw elected officials defend the Capitol riots and say that they had a constitutional right to do what they did. Now, the irony and the hypocrisy of the Capitol riot lies in the fact that white folk were upset that they lost an election. They lost an election and they overran the Capitol. Black people are losing our lives on a daily basis. And we're told to stand down and accept the rule of law. So how is it that when a Black person is unjustifiably murdered, we are told to stand down and accept the rule of law, but white folks can merely lose an election? Not a life, not a life. They lost an election and were allowed to overrun the Capitol. But when Black people lose our lives, we're supposed to accept the rule of law. But here's the other point as to why it was accepted by the white power structure to let white folk do what they did. The Civil War, although 150 years old, is still very fresh in America's memory. And America understands that this country is held together by the thinnest of threads. I'm not talking Black folks, I'm talking white folks. By the thinnest of threads. And this country also knows that there are more arms and guns in the hands of white civilians than is in the hands of the U.S. military. Now, the U.S. military has better weapons, but the American public has more weapons. And if you were to put 500,000 U.S. soldiers against 400 million white folks, I think we all know who wins that war. So when you talk about your right to govern comes from the consent of the public, that holds very true. That Fourth Amendment, that right to bear arms, that has this government walking on eggshells when it comes to not upsetting the everyday white American, because the Civil War can happen again. It can very much happen again. And this government knows that what all these white folks have been through these past couple years, they had better tread lightly. If they would have mowed down those white folks the way they would have done black folks, a second civil war may have been triggered, and they know it. That's why they stood down. America cannot win a war against its own white citizens.
I hear you. I hear you. You also touched on the Breakfast Club. You touched on that piece, white supremacy, the agendas hiding behind black skin. You touched on feminism, LGBTQ, multiculturalism. You was touching on a bunch of stuff. I mean, that was fire. As always.
Yeah, those are the new faces of racism. See, and I want people to be very clear with where I stand. I love all black people. Gay, straight, feminist, whatever you into, lesbian. I love all black people. The reason I wanted to be a psychologist was to heal my people. That's why I got into the field. Although I love all black folks, doesn't mean I cannot disagree with them. And see, this is where the dictatorial culture of feminism and the dictatorial culture of multiculturalism and the dictatorial culture of the LGBTQ community comes in. I take issue with the dictatorial culture of these three movements that have people feeling like if you disagree with me, you are automatically a hate monger. If you disagree with me, you automatically want to cause harm or hurt to me. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. I do therapy with homosexuals. I do therapy with abused women. I do therapy with people of other races. So I don't have an issue with that. But as a black man and as a Pan-Africanist and as a Pan-Africanist who's concerned about the liberation and best interests of my people, I will disagree with anything that I feel is not a benefit to our community. Same-sex relationship, I don't see a benefit of that lifestyle to our community. Do I have a problem with you living your life how you want to live your life? No, I don't. But don't ask me to endorse it. We don't have enough black men out here for black women as it is. How can I confirm or condone a man with a man when we got a shortage of men for our sisters? How can I, looking at the assault on the traditional black family, feminism, how can I sit back and look at an agenda that wants to demonize the black man and make him the scapegoat for everything the white man has done? I can't do that, feminists, and I'm not going to do it. I can't stand by and let people equate the Asian issue and the Latino issue and the poor white issue and the immigrant issue with the enslaved African issue and the offspring of the enslaved African issue. Homosexuals didn't build America. Black people did. Latinos didn't build America. Black people did. Irish, Italian, and Jewish immigrants didn't build America. Black people did. So don't come in and say that your movement has to be married to mine. You came as an immigrant. I came as an import. I was once considered to not be a human being in this country. Before black people could fight to be free, we had to prove we were people. Nobody else in America has ever been enslaved but us. Nobody else in America came as an import but us. Nobody else in America was dehumanized but us. Nobody else in America was forbidden to get an education, even under threat of death or incarceration, but us. I have no problem. I wish Asians the best. I wish Latinos the best. I wish Irish the best. I wish Jews the best. I wish the Chinese and the East Indians the best. But you will not equate your struggle with mine. All of you put together cannot equal what the black man and woman have been through. And at the end of the day, if it's that bad for you, you can go home. Black people can't go home because slavery destroyed the psychological umbilical cord that attached Black America to Black Africa. The white man created his own problem when he psychologically cut off the black man and woman from our ancestral homeland. Everybody got a home to go back to except American Africans, because the white man stole our memory and stole our affinity and stole our connection to our ancestral homeland. So with all due respect, I respect all other groups, but don't you ever try to compare your struggle with the black man or woman's. Whenever you do that, I will reject it unapologetically so.
No apologies necessary. What I'm going to transition to at that point is you talk clearly about white supremacy. You talk clearly about the white Americans basically knowing that their numbers are dwindling. And you started highlighting the benefits of why Joe Biden, President Biden at this point, made an executive order specific to Asian Americans, and the anti-lynching law is still out there yet to be passed. Talk about the history.
After 200 attempts.
After 200.
There have been 200 separate attempts to pass an anti-lynching bill in the U.S. Congress. These attempts go back to slavery itself.
Right.
200 separate bills introduced into the U.S. Congress to make the lynching of a black man or woman a federal crime. And guess what? 200 attempts and not one has passed. The Emmett Till anti-lynching bill is creeping through Congress again. Okay, introduced by Representative Bobby Rush, who served with the great Fred Hampton, chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party. He's the one of the co-authors of it, but it still hasn't passed. But the anti-Asian hate bill passed the Senate on the first vote, and only one person voted against it. So how is it that Asians can get the approval that quick, and black people been trying for 400 years to make lynching a federal crime, and we haven't succeeded yet? And that is because America is still America. The black man and the black woman's life doesn't mean anything. Frederick Douglass wrote in his autobiography, one of them, he said he used to frequently hear white people say that the life of a Negro was worth but a nickel, and the life of a freed Negro wasn't worth but a penny. I forget the exact statement, but he basically talked about the lack of value that is placed upon black people. And we need to understand something too. We got to get back to African culture, because European culture values people based on family name, education, income, and assets. Family name, education, income, and assets. So European culture, Karl can be worth more than me. I can be worth more than Karl based on superficial attributes. In African culture, the richest man on the planet, his life is no more valuable than the homeless man in the street. And as black people, we got to get back to being who we are. We cannot lose ourselves in European culture, because their culture doesn't even work for them. It doesn't even work for them, and it damn sure ain't gonna work for us.
All right. If you like this type of conversation, this content, we continue to tell you that we are going to make sure we bring you individuals, powerful individuals, decision makers, or those with connections to them, so that you can have access to them here at a seat at the table.
Black people, the enslaved African, outnumbered the slave master. So this whole notion of this being a new reality for white people being a minority amongst people of color is false. They have usually been the minority. The reason we're raising this as an issue, attorney, is they need to cut down our numbers in Africa.